James Gunn's Suicide Squad has, over the last few months, become one of the most beloved DCEU films. Warner Bros. Was eager to replicate the success of Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy by soft resetting the Suicide Squad, which, due to studio interference just a few years earlier, came out to abysmal critical response. But like a phoenix rising from the ashes of, burning crap, the Suicide Squad soared. The cast was universally praised, and specifically among them, John Felix Anthony Cena's Peacemaker. So much so that Warner Bros., before the film even debuted, reached negotiations with James Gunn to extend this character's stay by creating a Peacemaker show. Peacemaker, the man who loves peace so much he would do anything to obtain it, has his own fresh new show on HBO Max, and to celebrate the release of that show, today's video is going to cover the comic book history of Peacemaker's friend Vigilante. But before we go any farther, if you're a big fan of these videos, consider hitting the subscribe button, but more importantly, if you're already a subscriber, hit the bell so that you're notified when our videos go live. Let's be honest, Vigilante is everybody's favorite character, and he's delightful. Today's video is going to cover the comic book origins, abilities, and a brief history of Adrian Chase, aka Vigilante. Now, before we get too far into today's video, the character of Adrian Chase is a very different person in the comics than in the show. James Gunn is essentially given a lot of leniency when developing these characters. Adrian Chase in the show is a bit of an amalgamation of multiple characters who've donned the Vigilante name. So that being said, just kind of keep in mind that most of the stuff that you're going to learn in this video probably won't translate over to the character that you're seeing in the show. Adrian Chase, who would go on to become Vigilante's first comic book appearance, was in New Teen Titans number 23 by Mara Wolfman and George Perez, just an absolutely iconic team. This isn't his first appearance as Vigilante though, instead it's just the first appearance of the character. Adrian Chase is a DA who's actively investigating the Teen Titans battle with Brother Blood. Adrian appears in 7 issues of the New Teen Titans before he moves on to take the mantle of Vigilante. During this time, though, he does help the Teen Titans break up a drug shipment ring orchestrated by a mobster named Anthony Scarapelli. These investigations into the Scarapelli crime family go on across multiple issues. Adrian officially takes up the mantle of Vigilante in New Teen Titans Annual number 2, and this issue starts by exclaiming that Chase's wife Doris and 2 children were killed via a bomb that was planted in their home by Anthony Scarapelli. But fortunately for Chase, he was able to survive, although he did die for 7 minutes, as well as the bomb lodging shrapnel in his heart. Robin, who had been working closely with Chase, ends up taking the news pretty poorly and launches a one-man assault on the Scarapelli crime family. However, he pulls back a bit as Starfire senses he's kind of losing his composure. While this is occurring, Chase ends up leaving the country for a number of months to recuperate. We'll discuss where he goes and what he does a little bit later. Due to Robin's investigation of the crime family, Scarapelli tries to get assassins to kill him, but some of the assassins are murdered before they can actually complete their mission, and it probably doesn't take much foreshadowing to determine who it is that's killing those people. Throughout this issue, we're also introduced to another group of new mercenaries sent after the Teen Titans, and this is the first appearance of a lot of these characters. Real household names like Bazooka, Cheshire, Scorcher, Slasher, Spear, and Tanker. And almost as quickly as these characters are introduced, a couple of them end up dying, like Scorcher and Slasher. Both are killed by an unknown assailant. Eventually, after a brief inter-mafia war that is in no way, shape, or form interesting, Scarapelli retreats to his home, desperate to get out of Dodge before he's confronted by Adrian Chase, back from recuperation and operating as the anti-hero Vigilante. Vigilante confronts Scarapelli, who begs for his life like a bitch, and Robin intervenes. Robin arrives just in time to give Adrian the classic, "If you kill Scarapelli, you're no better than he is," and Chase was going to let Robin take Scarapelli into the cops, but Anthony opens fire and Chase is forced to kill him in order to protect Robin. Vigilante disappears after making sure an ambulance is called to help the injured boy Wonder and kind of disappears into the night. At this point, Vigilante, Adrian Chase, stars in his own comic that ran for exactly 50 issues. Chase is a DA by day but Vigilante by night, often picking his targets based off when someone slips through the judicial cracks. During this span of comics, Chase deals harshly with many criminals. For example, in the first issue, he ends up murdering Mr. Quilt, an evil businessman that he had unsuccessfully tried as DA before. He also kills his main henchman, the ridiculous-looking Brand, whose whole gimmick is that he brands his victims. The 80s were insane. However, as Chase continues to operate as Vigilante, he starts to question his own ethics and choices. Chase ends up beating a suspected murderer nearly to death, a man he helped put away a few years earlier named Leonard Cord. After being released, Vigilante hunts him down and beats him nearly to death before finding out that Cord was telling the truth. These types of mistakes and questionable decisions end up weighing very heavily on Vigilante's conscience. Now, earlier we did mention that we were going to get back to where Adrian went when he was recuperating from the bomb that killed his family. One particularly important issue is issue number 7 that tells the story of how Chase was trained to become Vigilante. Chase was met by a mysterious woman named Lynn at the grave of his wife. She drove him to the desert where they marched for days on end before finding a hole in the ground. There he meets 3 other mystics, Chaka, Bloody Knife, and Chastity, which are all terrible names. Chase begins an intense training program with these 4. Giving him advanced hand-to-hand combat training and somehow imbuing him with the power of cellular regeneration. Chase fails many tests during this training but ultimately proves successful when he's motivated properly by the death of his family. Before Chase leaves, he comes to learn that the people he was training with are all ghosts. That's right, these are ghosts of dead warriors who wish to see people who have been wronged avenged. It's a terrible 80s plotline, but that's the way it was written, and yeah, sorry. I'm definitely not going to cover all 50 issues of this comic series, but across the span of his career, Adrian begins to seriously decline in terms of his mental health. The weight of his actions start to bear down on him as he makes mistakes. Adrian slowly loses his sanity and begins becoming increasingly violent. At the end of the series, one evening after reviewing the entirety of his career and actions as Vigilante and all the pain and misery he's caused, Vigilante goes on one last mission. Vigilante raids an opium den and ends up killing everyone there and wounding a police chief. After wounding the police chief, he believes that he dies, and the guilt and depression finally get to Adrian and he ends up killing himself. His funeral is small and attended by most of the remaining friends and colleagues that he had. His ashes were taken by his partner and one-time lover, Blackthorn. And that is pretty much it for Vigilante. There are multiple other heroes who have donned the Vigilante costume, but this video I really wanted to focus on Chase, who the character in the show is actually named after but shares very little semblance with. Thank you again for watching this video. I hope you learned a lot, and if you did, consider liking and subscribing and doing all that other crap that YouTubers ask you to do. This has been Nick with Key Issues. Thanks again, and remember the motto, Vigilante over everything.